Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week we're going to start tackling the trim in the rear of the car. Alright guys, welcome back. Those watching last week will have seen that I completed my door trims. I did the inserts and I leather covered the armrests. If you missed it, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up. And as always, think about subscribing and hit that notification bell. It definitely helps the channel out. Just going over some of the things from last week, there are a few comments about this insert. A lot of people don't seem to, there's mixed opinions. Some people really don't like this lower black line, the way that I've done these inserts. The way that I designed it is that it's parallel to the top, at the top of the insert, and then it levels out with the armrest, which does make the lower part a bit of an angle, and people think that looks a bit weird. I actually don't mind it. I think it looks fine. I'm quite happy with those inserts. Yes, they're not 100% perfectly straight. You can see some of the sort of the wobbles in them. I am more than happy with that. I'm quite happy with how this turns out. And once I put my window winder in and the little butterfly twisting lever that does the quarter glass, I think it's going to be just right. So I am very happy with how that is. So I think today we need to start doing the rear of the car. And one of the big things why I want to get the back end of the car done so that I can do the review at World Time Attack is that I have to have glass in the car. I have to be able to leave the car under security but outside overnight. And I can't take it like this with no glass in it. And I'm not going to put the glass in and then pull it back out again to do the rear of the interior. So the interior needs to be done so that I can actually get the glass in the car. So that is the task of today, is to go in the back and let's have a look and see what we need to do to cover that up, because we're not having back seats. All right, so now I'm sitting in the back of the Alfa, and obviously I need to come up with some sort of way to trim all this, but I do have the roll cage, which you've seen previously that I built that already fits in here. So there aren't any back seats. And it's a matter of making a nice looking interior that sort of matches in and flows with everything else. And that is my next challenge. So to start with, I know I'm going to have a flat parcel shelf. And then I have to have some sort of paneling coming down here, but I also have to cover these sort of wheel arches that are in here and work out how I'm going to do the base of the seat and all the rest of it. I know I'm going to use a little bit of carpet, a little bit of leather, a bit of different bits and pieces. But first things first, I think I need to fit in the motors that I made up to open the rear windows. So let's get them in there so I sort of know where they come out, and obviously have to trim around them. So let's start sort of factoring in all the different things and make up some templates, and I'll show you what I come up with. So here I'm just cutting out a rough shape that's a little bit larger than what I need, so I can start trimming it to fit inside the car and making up my rear parcel shelf piece. This just takes a little bit of time, going backwards and forwards and making small adjustments. I can always stick some more on if I cut too much off. And you can see here now I'm starting to do a panel that goes across the back of the back seat. And I actually worked out it's probably going to be nicer in 3 sections, so that's what I ended up doing. Alright, so I've been in here in the back seat and making up sort of multiple panels. I think the way I want to do it is with multiple pieces. It'll look nicer having a bit more going on, and it also makes it easier to put it together, because ultimately, I want it to look reasonably neat and tidy, and that's going to require a little bit of finessing. So this parcel shelf, I decided I wanted to make it tilt over the top. As you can see, I've sort of folded a lip over the edge, and the back of the seat actually sort of dips in a little bit as it goes along. So I've made these two side pieces as separate bits. So there'll be a center panel, two side panels, and then the parcel shelf, and they sort of lock each other in. So this gets locked in at the back of the center console. These then clip over the top of that center panel, and then the parcel shelf clips over the top again. And there'll be a couple of visible fixing points just to make it nice and neat. And then I've got my factory side panels that I can use as templates to make my aluminium pieces. There's going to be a leather cover over the wheel arch that you do see, and carpet going along underneath here with a leather strip on the edge that sort of wraps around and finishes that off nicely. So that's the current plan. So I need to start playing around and start making up some of these panels out of aluminium. So instead I decided to put the roll cage in, and I probably should have taken the seats out, but thankfully nothing was damaged in the fitting of the roll cage. So it's always a difficult job to actually get the roll cage back in. Now it's all trimmed, but the roll cage is in. I now have to go through and I probably need some straps to help bolt it all in, and I'll get it put permanently in place. I think I'll leave it in there now and trim around it because I need to know where everything fits around the cage. So the cage is going in now to stay. So because the roll cage always seems to move a bit after welding, I use a ratchet strap to sort of help pull it into place and get it all fitting perfectly, neatly and nicely. But I put a bit of tape on the cage first so that I don't actually damage the paint with the ratchet strap. So I start marking out all my pieces onto my aluminium, and using the guillotine for the nice straight edges makes life much, much easier. Now for all the curved sections, I actually ended up finally buying myself a nibbler, which I've used for the first time here. And to be honest, I think I actually prefer the jigsaw with just a regular wood braid on aluminium. The nibbler seems to sort of get stuck by the burrs on the underside once it cuts, and it's sort of a bit harder to maneuver. The jigsaw does a really good job on aluminium, but I think for steel the nibbler might come into its own. And I just tied up all the edges with a flap disc just to make everything nice and neat and not cut into the leather. Alright, so I've got my main panels across the back. They're just sitting in place at the moment, and what I want to do now is I want to actually work out how to secure them and fasten them into place. This center piece in the middle will have some, hopefully some fasteners that are sort of hidden underneath these wing pieces here, and I think that sort of will fit in quite nicely like it is there. So it's time to sort of nut out some nuts and bolts or whatever I'm going to use to hold it in, probably some self-tappers to start with, and I can probably replace them with some rib nuts or something like that. So let's start sort of working out my exact mounting locations and see if we can fix these in place and move on to the other panels. right, so I've got to tip the edge of this panel, this rear panel, and it's too big and it's the wrong shape to fit in my brake, so I have to do it manually, and I'm going to use my pliers, and these are I've made this lip the exact right length so that I can slip the pliers on and get it in one bite, and I'm just going to go through and just very carefully break the edge all the way along, slowly work my way along, and hopefully get a nice even bend. Let's see if that works. And that works quite well, just using the pliers and going along gradually and moving along nice and evenly. I've got these quite nice breaks in my panel, so let's go and see if it fits in the car. That's looking really, really nice. I'm very happy with how that all fits in. This sitting over the top will just give a nice lip and make it sort of sit in there nicely and do what I want it to do. All these panels are all now sitting in quite nicely. You can sort of see there's a nice fit all the way through, and yeah, that is a nice looking rear panel section. So now let's have a look at the side panels, and then we're going to have to start doing something about these bits. So here I'm using the car builder's templating plastic to get an idea of the shape I want for the carpet piece to sit in the back, including a ring that goes around the base of the roll cage. And I'm also making sure that I mark everywhere I want to put a leather seam, and also where I want to leave a bit extra to sort of tuck under the other panels. Alright, so I made my patterns for the rear wheel arches, and I went back and I've actually sewn up some pieces that fit in quite nicely and fill that space. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of foam onto these arches first, and glue that down and glue these panels down, and I'll have that sort of nice finished wheel arches on either side. I've also done the same with the carpet, so I've sewn all the edges up on that, so we can put the carpet in on the base, put these down here, and then we can start looking at making our final side panels and covering these rear panels, etc. So you can see on my carpet section I did a seam that sat around the base of the wheel arch, and another seam for the ring that goes around the base of the roll cage. I also sewed an extra strip on the front edge of the carpet piece so that it can wrap over the stair lip and then tuck underneath the carpet I'd put in previously. So all these pieces are getting a 3mm foam backing before I wrap them in the leather. Holy moly, I am very happy with that. I've still got to hit things with a heat gun and smooth things out a little bit, but the overall finish is really nice. That rear parcel shelf cap sitting on the top, It's all sitting in there quite nicely. It sort of loops around the roll cage reasonably neatly. It's not perfect, but you know, it's sort of very difficult portion to actually sort of wrap around and still have it meeting quite nicely. Now, I may come back and put a little bit of a design in the center at the back at some stage, but at the moment, to be honest, hidden down in there behind the roll cage and stuff, you don't really, it's not as big of a feature as it sort of seems. I mean, particularly once the once the seats are in here and stuff, it's really it's really just a sort of small part down the back. All right, the back is looking really good. I'm very happy with how that is coming together, and these side panels are a little slightly more complicated. As you can see, I've taken the old one, I've done a bit of a cut out for the where the arm for the roll cage goes in. I'm actually going to modify this slightly on the final design because, yeah, it will sort of tidy that top edge up. But one of the things that I have to factor in is that I changed over to these retractable seat belts. And by having these retractable seat belts, I have to have a way of them coming out through the door trim and joining up. I jumped onto Fusion 360 and designed up a trim piece that I am now currently, the 3D printer is running and that's currently printing that out. So hopefully I'll have that ready in an hour or so. And that trim piece is going to sort of sit into the into this trim, roughly where the old ashtray was. That's going to go in there, and then I can actually have retractable seat belts that sit in there nicely. And that trim piece is big enough to be able to let the large bits of the seat belt to come through, and then it covers up that sort of larger hole and just has a little slot where the seat belt can come in. So that should do nicely. So now I need to just work out exactly where my speaker hole goes into my door card here, and then we can start making them up out of aluminium and chuck them in the car. So my method to get the speaker hole in the exact spot was to cut a hole roughly in the right spot, then reach behind with a marker, draw an outline exactly where it's supposed to be, and then cut it to shape. From there on, it's more of the same, cutting them out with the nibbler, tidying up with the flap disc, then foam, then leather. Alright, these trims are coming up nicely. I've just stuck the leather on the outside, and I started sort of cutting through some of these bits and pieces, the holes for the speakers and where the seatbelt goes. And I had this other one glued on to a piece of leather, yeah, I started cutting out all the holes, and I cut out from the back, cut out the hole there, cut out the hole there, and started cutting out the hole here. And this is actually not supposed to be cut through. I just want that to be a recess so that the bolt can sort of protrude out a little bit for the seat belt. It just sort of sits there, but you won't actually notice it. It just sort of gives it a bit of space. And I cut it out. So I wrecked the piece of leather because it's got a cut hole in it. So that's really annoying. But I still have a bit left over, so I can go back and get that. But yeah. Next thing is I ordered another roll. I hit up Car Builders and ordered another roll of this mass-loaded vinyl. This is the stuff to keep that noise out of the cabin. So thanks again to Car Builders. And yeah, we're going to start putting it on the back of these panels so that the sound doesn't come through. The other ones in the back that I've currently got in there don't need it because there's all the mass-loaded vinyl underneath. But these on the sides of the car don't have anything, so that's why this mass-loaded vinyl is going on now. So let's glue those bits on, and then we can finish trimming this up and hopefully get these things installed. So before I install it, I have to feed the seat belt through the door trim. Then I can secure it into place. And finish it off with my 3D printed seatbelt trim. Wow, that was a lot of work, but it's looking so good. It may be a little bit plain. As I said, I may put a bit of a logo here. I did think about putting some more seams around the place and stuff, but I just didn't get around to that. I've still got to get to a little bit about the wrinkles in this wheel arch cover. The other side is not too bad, but there's wrinkles. There's wrinkles around the place that need to be hit with a heat gun. My little 3D printed pieces actually work quite well. You can still see they're 3D printed, but they actually sort of blend in quite nicely, are hidden. You can see the screws are recessed in behind. You can't really see the workings of it. It just looks like a nice, neat trim piece. Overall, I am super happy with how this has turned out. This is a nice, neat rear section of the car. Most of the time the front seats are obviously going to be sitting back here anyway. You're not really going to see a lot of this, but it's just nice to have a nice, reasonably finished up area. So, wow. I am very happy with the rear parcel section of this car, but I am totally out of time this week. So I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, the Ferrari 612 Scaglietti was built between 2004 and 2010 as a replacement for the 456. The 612 was a larger car than the outgoing 456, which made it a true four-seater with adequate space in the back for adults to sit comfortably. Although the name 612 suggests a 6-litre V12 engine, it was actually a 5.7-litre, making 540 horsepower. It was also available as a true manual or paddle shift manual. In 2008, Ferrari announced their OTO personalisation program. OTO stands for one-to-one, and after that, the 612 was only available through the special order process. This allowed clients to select from a wide range of options, from leather swatches to brake calipers, and everything in between. In 2006, a special 612 GP Burn Edition was released to celebrate Ferrari's 40th anniversary in Switzerland and the anniversary of the first Swiss Grand Prix in 1949. This edition featured two-tone paint and a special plaque on the dashboard featuring an imprint of the famous track. A total of 3,025 612s were built, with only 199 of them being manuals.
All right, we are getting there. The interior is really close. I am very happy with how it's looking in there now. It's sort of looking much more completed, and the rundown to World Time Attack is getting there. So hopefully next week we've got more bits and pieces to tackle, just sort of buttoning it all up so that it can actually get to the event. I do have the diff back that's sitting over here. I'll show you that in another future episode. But we're moving forward in the right direction. So
absolutely. It's coming along. Yeah, it's approaching. It's fast approaching.
All right, guys.
Like, subscribe, Patreon, and see you next time.
We'll see you next time. See you guys.
Which made it a true four-seater with adequate than the outgoing 4 suggests a 6-litre V12 engine. It was actually 500. Oh Jesus! Leather swatches to brake calipers.
Calipers.
Purrs.
Purrs.